Hello everyone, how you doing? Hope you're doing okay. I had a really great opportunity to Skype somebody not in Wales, not in the UK, but in America. I was really nervous because I wasn't sure how the internet would hold up and what the connection would be like, but it was fantastic. So excited for you to watch my interview with musical theatre performer Andrew Polec. Take a watch.
So my first question for you is, what's your earliest theatrical memory?
My earliest theatrical memory, and this is going way, way back. My parents, I think when I was 4 years old, took me to Disney World in Florida. And it's a very hazy, vague memory. However, so we were at this Hawaiian-themed restaurant. I had a choice to either eat chocolate ice cream as a dessert, or people were asking the kids to come up and do a Hawaiian dance, like a whole luau thing. Yeah. And I really, really didn't want to do it. I just wanted to have the chocolate cake and ice cream, but my parents went, no, you got to go up there and do it with everyone. And I went up there and did the luau, and really was just looking forward to that chocolate cake and ice cream at the end. However, I guess that was my first foray onto the stage.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Reluctantly.
Yeah, very reluctantly. I don't know. Obviously, things changed later on in my life. However, at the time, I would choose sugar over performing. So there you go.
I don't mean to be funny, but I probably would now.
Oh, you would now? Yeah. I would agree with you there right now.
Yeah, I was about to say at the moment. I mean,
yeah, at the moment, yeah, absolutely dessert over performing.
Love it. And do you have any musical influences?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of my main influences would definitely be the Jim Steinman and Meatloaf catalog. That music, in a nutshell, changed my life. I first was introduced to them after a very, very difficult time in my life when I was, in my late teenage years. I got into a really, really bad bicycle accident. During this bicycle accident recovery, the doctors said to me, you can't do contact sports anymore. And I was really, really into lacrosse at the time. It was tough because I loved being physical. I loved getting in there and hitting people and checking people and everything. And when that was taken away from me and I was in the trauma unit for 5 days and they said, your head's all scrambled up, I didn't know what to do with my life.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when my dad introduced music to me. And he obviously had introduced music to me throughout my life, and so had my mom. My mom came from more of a musical theater standpoint. My dad came from more of a rock and roll standpoint. And I think it was when I listened to bands like The Doors or The Beatles and then Meatloaf and hearing Paradise by the Dashboard Light the first time, I went, oh my gosh, what is this? There's no verse, there's no chorus, there's no bridge. It's just A section, B section, C section, D section, E section, and then extreme outro. And then more sections after that. And it was that kind of energy and that kind of verve for life in that kind of music that drove me into the performing arts and seeing that was as high octane and high energy as any sport you could possibly do.
Yeah, the music is very it lends itself to theatre, doesn't it? It tells you a story within a song, which a lot of that kind of style of music just doesn't do. So I guess it's very different and original, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that sense of song storytelling really exists in the pop world anymore, which is rather unfortunate because I think at times like this we look for stories in music because a lot of our stories are rather subdued or at least a little halted right now. And I think that's why everyone loves streaming services right now, loves watching TV, loves reading books. It would just be great to have more of those Jim Steinman story songs that last for 15 minutes, because we have the time right now. There's certainly time to kill.
And also, it's nice to be transported, isn't it? Just by listening to music, you don't have to go through to a theatre soundtrack and find the story. You've got a soundtrack within a song, essentially, haven't you? So it's nice to be transported. You listen to a song, and it can take you wherever you are on that day. It might well be you'll listen to the same song 3 days later, and it takes you somewhere else.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Beautifully said.
Oh, thanks. And talk about your career so far. So you said that you kind of listened to music a little, or it came to you a little bit later on into your teenage years. Where did it start for you, and where has it taken you?
Oh, goodness. I would say after the accident, that's when I joined my school choir. And then I think I started, the first musical I ever did with my school group was Honk,
Okay.
which I know was a much larger hit in the UK than it was in the US. So obviously there were a lot of my classmates who wondered, what exactly is this musical? Where did it come from? Why is it so full out? And I was a minor part in that. I think I was Jaybird and then chorus for most of the time. However, I don't know, things started ramping up. I did not realize that I had a good voice. It was always assumed in my mind that if you could talk, you could sing. And I thought everyone could sing, and they were just maybe just holding back, because I figured that talking just consisted of the same thing as singing, except singing you just held out your talking longer with more sound. And when I got a solo for the choir for some jazz rock piece, I was really, really nervous about it and prepared and everything. And when I actually performed it in front of all the parents and all the faculty and families, my mom came up to me at the end and said, "Holy cow, you can actually sing." And I went, "Oh, yeah, no, I thought everyone could sing." She went, No, you can actually sing." And I guess I think back on that now and go, wow, that's really weird that I wasn't able to put two and two together and realize that there are different calibers of people who can sing and people who can communicate via your sound, via your instrument, and via your heart and soul. And it changed continuously from there. However, when I graduated high school, I still, unfortunately, was under the impression that arts people were thought of as not smart. And I ended up attempting to go to university to do pre-med and go down the medical field because I wanted to be respected for how I thought. And I obviously did fine in the classes when I was there. However, something was missing in me. And I think it was what we talked about before. I think it was the idea of telling a story and the idea of connecting with people through a story. And so I eventually majored in English and I majored in music history because I really liked stories, and I liked the amazing teachers that were at the University of Rochester. And then, of course, I went down another path and started a DIY band with a DIY record label, and we were called Cat House, and we toured around the upstate New York area and really, really wanted to make indie rock work in a world where streaming was just becoming available and nobody really knew how the music model was working anymore, and we kind of had to throw in the towel for that. However, after that, I ended up going to Brown University to pursue a master's in theater, and that was a huge eye-opening experience as well. And eventually I found myself in New York City doing the whole regular slog that everyone does, where you just go to auditions and you're not really seen, and you essentially are living that life of the starving artist and going, oh my gosh, is this it? Is this what everything was leading to? And now it's just being in New York City and living the hard knock life. However, I did get a huge break, call it serendipity, call it luck, call it being blessed in some way. At the time, there were auditions for the SpongeBob musical, and everyone was going crazy for that. Everyone knew SpongeBob was already cast. I showed up to an equity chorus call of the show, and the room was packed. I would say the room could probably only fit 50 people, and I want to say 200 people were stuffed into there. And they all knew each other. Some guy brought his baby in like a little baby carriage thing. I don't know what you call it. And I thought, oh my gosh, these people are hardcore theater people. They live their lives for theater. They bring their children. They even think they have enough financial stability to have children, which means, you know, they must be doing well or have things figured out. And in this equity chorus call, they did something that I thought was an urban legend. They lined people up in groups of 20. And basically the casting director would look at your resume, look at you, and just kind of go down the line and just go, yes, no, 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 yes, no, no. And I got to know that day. I was devastated. I was like, oh, geez, I love SpongeBob. Why would this happen to me? However, the next week I realized there was an equity principal audition. And I assumed just as many people were going to be in the waiting room as the time before. And I walked into the waiting room, and there were tops 15 people in there. And I went, oh my gosh, I can actually be heard. I can actually audition.
Yeah.
So I went in there, said I was going to sing Living on a Prayer. And they all just kind of looked at me and were like, yeah, right. Okay, whatever. And they're looking at the resume. And I get to the high note in Living on a Prayer for that, like, whoa part. And they all kind of look up and look at me and go, holy cow, where did this kid come from? And they said, we'd love for you to come back for an appointment, play a rock song and bring a rock instrument. And I was thinking a little bit differently and thought, what if for this next appointment I bring in a drum and sing a rock song? So I brought in a giant floor tom drum, probably the drum that nobody would expect you to bring in, unless maybe you were insane enough to bring in just like the bass drum, just like strap it around your chest. But yeah, people did that in marching bands. And this was 2 weeks later, right when I was about to go into that appointment, someone next to me in the waiting room said, hey, are you trying out for this Bat Out of Hell musical? It's right down the street at Pearl Studios. And given my history with Meatloaf and Jim Steinman, I went, do you mean like Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell? And the guy said, oh, no, I think that's a misnomer. I think it's based on something else, but I don't know, it's written by some guy named Jim. And when you're a hardcore Meatloaf and Jim Steinman fan, you just kind of go, yeah, okay, so that is the Bat Out of Hell musical. So I was overzealous for the SpongeBob audition. I wore too many SpongeBob clothes, and I had like a SpongeBob backpack, and they thought that was a bit too much. And I walked out of there, picked up my drum, and went straight to the essentially Meatloaf audition. Read the casting breakdown, thought, wow, this Strat character really, I think I could do this. And walked into that audition room, barely able to fit through the door with the huge drum. And the woman looked at me like I was a mad person because I still had all my SpongeBob audition stuff on with a bright red drum. And, you know, who brings a drum in just to sing 16 bars of a song? However, I think I was probably the most exciting thing that walked in that day because I just did not look like the demographic of the leather jackets and the spiky belts and the rock and roll attire. And so I got called back for that. And I got called back at first to do Jaguar, and then they loved me so much that they wanted me to audition for Strat, and I was up against people who were vetted in this industry, people who had been on Glee, people who were in Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, and I just didn't know it at the time. And landed into the workshop of this show, and they loved me in the workshop so much that they brought me to the UK to lead it, which was unheard of. I was the complete wild card that worked out, and I think because of that, I wouldn't be where I am today without maybe just blind trust and a lot of hard work and trying to throw myself at any obstacle in the way. Yeah, absolutely.
And what would you say with the show were your highlights? What were the best parts of that show for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there were so many highlights from that show. The first one would be meeting Jim Steinman in the workshop. He is, needless to say, a character. He is the living embodiment of all his music and his songs. So meeting him was a dream. And then, of course, meeting Meat Loaf as well was just out of this world. You're meeting the godfather of rock and roll, or maybe larger than life rock and roll in that case. And he really was a darling. I mean, he's just the sweetest guy. You'd think, given his stories and how crazy he was on stage and how crazy he was with other people back in the 70s and 80s, you would think he's, I don't know, this is Ozzy Osbourne, but bite the head off of a bat as well, just to show up Ozzy Osbourne. However, he really was an amazing person, and when I called him a legend and a star, he's like, no, I'm just a regular, ordinary guy. And you have to be like, no, you're anything but regular and ordinary. You help people be themselves. You helped unlock the magic of these songs and brought them to the masses. Without you, none of this would have been possible. And I have to say, probably the opening of Manchester, where we did our first preview, was life-changing. The night before the first preview, we just opened it up for friends and family, and we got the most lukewarm, almost tepid response. Nobody really laughed, nobody really applauded, and we all just kind of looked at each other and went, well, we gave it our best. We've been rehearsing for forever, and I guess we're probably going to close after Manchester. However, come that first preview, I opened with that first line, I remember everything, and the whole crowd, the whole audience erupted.
Yeah.
And it felt like the roof was going to collapse. And I think it's at times like that when you can feel the electricity go through an audience and reach you on stage. I think those are the most special moments in theater and any kind of live performance. Similar events happened at the Coliseum. Similar events happened in Toronto and at the Dominion Theatre. I want to say the Coliseum was probably the most special for me, only because of the amount of history that was at the Coliseum and the E&O. And just to know that you were on stage with all those amazing people from the past who sung their hearts out in that beautiful, acoustically resonant theater, and knowing that you were a part of that and paying homage to it, but also, I guess, receiving all the positive energy that they also felt from the years and years and centuries of paying homage to art. It was just an amazing and glorious experience.
Yeah, it is. It's stunning theatre, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful, and everything about it, the acoustics, it's huge as well. Absolutely enormous.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that I would say Manchester and the Coliseum, those were my favorite theaters to do Battle of Hell in. just because they're opera houses. I guess that's my point. I guess that's where my mind was kind of going, because this show is an opera, and I think had we included all the songs that Jim originally wanted, the opera would have been about 5 hours long. However, maybe people would have enjoyed that. On the other hand, I think many people would have lost their voices just completely after one show, because it's just a nuts repertoire.
And you said there that Manchester and the London Coliseum were your favourite places to perform that particular show. Have you had a favourite venue in all to perform anywhere doing anything?
Gosh, I want to say that oh my gosh, can I remember the name? No, I don't think I can remember the name. Where do the Olivier's take place?
Oh,
Royal Albert Hall? Is that it?
yeah. Royal.
I want to say the Royal Albert Hall is a magnificent venue to behold and also perform in, because no matter where your sight line is, you will see people, and that's crazy. That setup is insane. I would say that's probably one of my more favorite places to perform. However, I also think the intimate stages are also very, very important in theater and also live performance. I, for months, was performing off Broadway in a little show called The Fantastics, and I want to say it's such a sweet show that talks about the metaphors of life and the metaphors of growing up and finding your happiness and love in this world, that it felt so magical to do that for a small crowd, and also to, I don't know, hark back to the days of essentially the Beat generation when that show was made. And I think that you can personally make any space important as long as you are putting in the hard work and energy and love of art and love of reaching out and connecting with people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the different energies, I think, as well. A smaller space still requires so much energy, but just a different kind of energy.
Absolutely.
And sometimes shows like really warrant that intimate connection, really. And it is funny, as an audience member, to go and watch a show in a big theatre and then go and watch another show in a tiny theatre, and you kind of like the differences they're massive, aren't they?
They really are.
Equally as great.
Yes. Everyone equal.
What have you been doing during lockdown? Because you've been in lockdown a little longer than us, I think, right?
When did your lockdown start? Ours maybe officially, unofficially started the 12th of March, the 13th of March?
Ours was about 2 weeks after that.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I think it's a good time to reflect on what you've done and also find new hobbies. Currently, I've been putting together live stream shows of singing one Jim Steinman Meatloaf show a week and raising money for the many, many charities that are out there that are helping people during this really scary pandemic time, whether it's the Actors Fund or whether it's the Marie Curie Cancer Foundation, or even this week I'm going to do it for the National Kidney Foundation or No Kid Hungry or Global Giving. I think Global Giving is a great organization. Any organization that can help people who are in need, because I think while it's important to keep arts at the forefront and keep performing and keep creating, it's also important to keep the love going and keep everyone aware that we are all in this together, and there's really no separation between any of us.
Yeah.
Like, anyone can get sick from this, and we just need to keep giving and keep loving, and make sure that we all get through this and are on the other side, holding hands. I don't know if or when live performances will come back. However, I'm grateful that this happened now. We have the technology for this now.
Yeah.
Other than that, I am focusing on continuing to trying to create things, whether it's writing music or I don't know, learning a piano piece or just singing for the heck of it. I think just focusing on whatever feeds your soul and feeds your mind and makes you happy.
Yeah. Great. I think like what you said there was really it really resonates with a lot of people. I think particularly I come from someone who teaches small children, but a lot of them being in like their teenage years, they've got things like Instagram and stuff like that, and they're always saying about all these people that are on the television and famous people in whatever dynamic you've got, and looking at their lives and almost being envious or wanting to strive for that life. And I think this kind of lockdown has made them aware that actually we're all very similar.
No difference.
No, we're all sat on our couch just
No
because.
division between the people you hold on a pedestal and where you are. We're all experiencing it together, and we're really all in this together. Share the message, and I don't know, hug your family, and I don't know, make sure that people know you're there for them.
Absolutely. And I think that is just as important, isn't it? Just as important.
Absolutely.
Check in on everybody. And I think you can see on social media sometimes that people post pictures of themselves in the garden, and they look happy and they look fine, but still check in on them, check up.
Yeah. We don't know if anything that people post is real or a lie.
Absolutely. So it is very important to
that's a very good point.
keep checking in and keep making sure we're all good. Right, I've got some funny kind of ones now. So do you have a favorite childhood series or character?
Yes, SpongeBob was my favorite childhood series or character. I think I also really, really loved the Jackie Chan adventures. I don't know if they were in the UK, but that was like a very popular Saturday morning cartoon at my house. So
yeah, we had that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And did you like like reality TV when you were younger? Did you watch things like, I don't know if you have them over where you are, but like we have obviously Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, that kind of thing. Like, did you like watching stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed American Idol. And then the one reality show that I still have not kicked the bug is Survivor. I know that didn't catch on to become like a full-out series in the UK. However, here I don't really know how I don't know how big the fan base is, but the people who are Survivor fans who I've met are very, very hardcore about it. And you always think, oh gosh, how would I be on an island with like no food and competitions and egos and trying to vote out other people and how that works. I don't know. I find that endlessly fascinating because it seems like a constant social experiment of how people work.
I'd be useless.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, because I'm not very good. I like to keep the peace. I like to keep everybody happy, which I know is not very good.
No, people are on there who try to keep the peace in Survivor, and they usually do pretty well. So you never know. But I think that's the beauty of it. You really, what can happen, like reaction wise, is anyone's guess.
And I also guess, like, if it was on, say, 10 years ago, the difference in, like, the types of people that you're going to get, because 10 years ago, like, social media and stuff just wasn't really a thing.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Whereas, now you can imagine 10 years ago, people being like, oh, well, I'm without my phone, who cares? Whereas now people actually have, like, serious, separation anxiety with their phones.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, I forgot about that people really can't separate from their phones. Case in point, my reacted to me when I was talking earlier. Maybe that means my phone can't get over me, but we'll see.
We'll go with that one.
Yeah.
And do you have a favourite season?
I love fall. Love it. Or sorry, autumn. You guys call it autumn.
That's okay.
You do call it fall? Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? The leaves are falling, right? So that's.
There you go. There you go.
God.
I don't know. For some reason, that's a very nostalgic time for me, and it's also, it feels like excitement is in the air. I guess that's also when horror movies come out, and as much as I'm terrified of horror movies, I also really enjoy them. And I don't know. I guess maybe it's the start of school for people. It's the start of everything changing and like getting the harvest. And I really, really like Halloween and dressing up. So there you go.
Yeah, love it. Brilliant.
Right,
yeah. It changes here, like the whole everything changes, like you say, the leaves are turning brown and like falling off the trees, and like everywhere gets darker so quickly. And yeah, like you say, Halloween is a big thing. Like it wasn't so much when we were kids, it wasn't a big thing. I know it's always been big in America, but yeah, when we were kids,
it has. Because I know in the UK it's just you dress up as something dead, like it always be dead themed, right?
Yeah.
Weird. That's it's not weird. It's just very different. I remember spending my first Halloween there and wondering why everyone was dressed up, but they had like blood coming out of their eyes or their mouth. It's fascinating to learn about different cultures, I guess.
And do you have what are your hobbies?
My hobbies are playing piano, guitar, and drums, writing music, journaling, and also I really, this is gonna sound really weird, have recently got into gardening. I must be a sign of the times, but all of a sudden I'm very interested in what kinds of plants are what, and I really have no previous knowledge of it, and I can't say that I'm learning very quickly. However, it's fascinating to see how plants interact with each other.
And do you grow your own veg and things like that?
I haven't quite gotten there yet, but we'll see what happens.
Maybe that's the next step up.
I think that's the next step up for this gardening hobby.
Yeah, we tried to do tomatoes a couple of weeks ago, but we had a really weird couple of days where we had a frost. I don't know, we don't even know where it came from, but like, yeah, it killed off the tomato plants.
I'm sorry about that.
I know, but it was literally, we weren't even supposed to have it, and we woke up and everywhere was like icy, and it was like, what the heck is happening? Why is everywhere icy? And yeah, it killed off the tomatoes. So we were a little bit gutted because yeah, we'd not done it before, and there it was.
It snowed maybe a week ago here for 15 minutes, and then it just stopped. So I hear, yeah, it's really bizarre because otherwise it was 21 degrees.
Yeah.
So
that's weird.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's the climate.
Video and everything. It was one cloud, just literally one cloud. It blew over, blew in, dropped snow, and then left.
How weird.
Who knows?
And if you could duet with anyone, who would it be and why?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to do it with Meatloaf. That would just be a real dream.
Yeah.
However, duetting with people who maybe aren't alive anymore, it would be really fun to do it with, I don't know, John Lennon or Freddie Mercury or, I don't know, someone from that time or era. However, I don't know, I'd also really like to duet with Joni Mitchell, but I don't know if she actually would really ever want to do that. So go figure.
Yeah, she's got a great voice. It's very unique, isn't it?
Oh yeah, really unique. And she's definitely also one of those people who writes stories in their songs, like very, very long stories, which we need more of. So there you go.
And my last question is, if you could give advice to somebody who was maybe looking at going into the industry, or just young performers like the kids that I teach, what would your advice be?
Absolutely. This is the advice I wish I had heard when I was younger. I think it's changing, though I think unfortunately we're raised in a culture where the arts are thought of as still secondary to many, many jobs. And I would like to tell young aspiring performers and actors that you guys are the future. You guys are hope, and you create so much happiness in everything that you do. It doesn't matter whether you just draw a picture or you just, I don't know, write a play and never even show it to anyone. It's the fact that you are creating that is making this world a better place where everyone's voice can be heard. And that is of utmost importance. So believe in yourself, keep creating art, and know that you are enough, you are valued, and there's only one of you in this world that is now and ever will be.
Lovely. That was really lovely. That was really kind. It was. No, it's nice because I think, yeah, you're very right. A lot of people just see it as, well, it can be a hobby, but don't you can't do that as a job. It's not a job. It's not a career. It's not a lifestyle. It's just something you do as well as. And I know a lot of people do that. That is fine. But to put people down and say actually that you can't do that is, we're still stuck in that. It's such a weird way of thinking. To be creative is kind of still really poo-pooed, and you're like, really? Actually, these are the people who give so many people hope. These are the people who transport you into a totally different world and can give you something to hold on to when
Absolutely.
you don't feel like you've got anything. And I mean, how incredible is that, to be able to do that for somebody, just as important as so many other things.
It's very, very true. Yeah, and especially during a quarantine period or pandemic period, this is what's keeping you company. The arts, this is what's helping you escape. And if you're crying out loud for that, we're all grateful.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen.
No worries at all. And I'll send you the link when it goes up onto the channel.
Awesome.
Amazing. You've been a star. I'd love to keep in touch.
Yes, let's do it. Okay.
Fab.
Stay safe and healthy.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Huge thank you to Andrew. It was fantastic getting to talk to him, and just so cool that I'm all the way over here and he's all the way in America, and we could still have a good chat. I hope you enjoyed it. More guests still to come. See you later. Bye.